Hey, you're listening to the right episode if you wanted to hear ordinary people doing extraordinary things. I'm your host, Steve Kyles. Welcome to the Loan Officer Leadership Podcast. We're powered by the Mortgage Marketing Animals, and I'm excited about today's topic, about today's episode. It's near and dear to my heart. I'll tell you, so many, Carl and I and the team, even today we were talking about this environment is where it takes hard work, discipline. It takes a real push and an effort to continue to move things forward and to see big results and success. And you have what it takes. And I've got someone who is not a stranger to the podcast, not a stranger to my life. My best friend, my twin brother, Jimn Kyles is on the podcast. And you guys remember, if you'll go back some of the episodes, I don't know, maybe half a year ago when we dropped the book, Unstuck and Unstoppable. Jimn is not a stranger. He's been on here multiple times. What's up, bro? How you doing?
Hey, what's up, man? Bro, it's so good to be on the podcast. First, let me just say what an honor it is. I'm always just blown away by what you're doing and the podcast, and the people that are listening. They're world changers, man. So I'm always honored to be your guest and love being here with you.
I know. Well, listen, man. You have been to our listeners. Many of you know my twin brother Jimn. He is a pastor, one of the best pastors, in my opinion, in America. And you have been on a series, and you and I have personally been talking about ordinary people doing extraordinary things. And I said, Jimn, you got to get on the podcast. I want you to encourage our people. In the mortgage space, it has definitely shifted. And some people would say it's really tough. And some people would say it's not tough if you do the right activity and you're faithful and you do the work. And I just want you to encourage our audience. And then you've got an initiative that you've launched that is really making a huge impact. I want you to talk about that at the end as well. But when I told you this morning, I was like, Jimn, talk to us. Ordinary people doing extraordinary things, man.
Yeah, well, the series was just something that I felt very led to lead our people through, because I think with the movement of social media, with what we see as what gets praised, a lot of it tends to lend itself to super gifted people, extravagant moments of success. And if we're not careful, as we begin to idolize what is celebrated, it creates paralysis and apathy in our own life. And I think, just as in the church, it does the same with loan officers, because it's this tension that you got to manage, right? You got to celebrate how what people are doing is making an impact, but yet you've got to bring people along who feel like what you just celebrated is so far away. It's almost a deflating moment, because I feel like that's impossible. And so what we've done is just talk about how God uses ordinary people who do ordinary and simple acts of obedience to do extraordinary things.
Man, you're 100% right. You see, it's like, oh, these guys are killing it. They're doing so much volume, so much business. And it almost can be discouraging for somebody who says, hey, listen, I'm just starting out. How could my making the phone calls and following the daily success plan and doing what I'm supposed to be doing make that kind of an impact and difference? And I love that, man. So, hey, talk about it. So when I say things like ordinary people doing extraordinary things, give some examples, man, because you've been giving examples, or even just talk through that a little bit more in detail.
Absolutely. It's been so fascinating, because as I am a pastor, so when we read, we often put ourselves in the spot of the heroes, not as the people who were insignificant, but might have had a part. So in other words, we talked yesterday about the story of Naaman. Naaman is a Syrian commander of the army. And there is a slave girl who he has taken captive, and she is serving in his house. But she mentions to Naaman to go see the prophet to be healed. Well, lo and behold, he gets healed. Well, we love to talk about Elisha, the prophet, who heals him. We love to talk about, maybe I'm Naaman, the one with leprosy, who God takes me to the right place and heals me. But nobody talks about the little slave girl. And so that's what we did yesterday. It was one of the most exciting messages I think I've shared in a long time, because when you unpack her life, she's the real hero. And what she did was she used her voice to point someone who was lost to a place where he could not only be saved, but a place he could be healed. And so what the premise of yesterday was, don't allow the enemy to silence your voice. Your voice matters. And I think even when you're talking to loan officers and you're talking to people that are breaking in the business, number one, or people that have been in the business for a long time, what'll happen is when you haven't seen what you thought you should see, then the enemy begins to tell you your voice doesn't matter, your discipline doesn't matter, your acts of obedience don't matter, running the play doesn't matter, you can never. And what we want to do is we want to silence the voice of the enemy, whether the enemy is, in our opinion, the devil, or the enemy is yourself, or it may be the subconscious replaying of words of people from the past that have hurt you through their words that you constantly run the filter of your life through. Regardless, if we would just say, hey, what I need to do today matters, it's significant. I refuse to be silenced. I refuse to be apathetic. And you may not see it today, you may not see it tomorrow, but we just believe that over the life of your lifetime, you're going to see the results.
Well, hey, and I love that, man. It's such an encouragement because, Jim, what we do a lot, we coach thousands of loan officers, and what you'll find is that first 4 or 5 months, like you literally will have very little or very, very subtle changes in your business. And Jim, that's what happens is you get discouraged. It's like, man, I'm in 30 days and I've been doing the right activity. I'm making the phone calls. I'm doing the work. Then you get into month 2 and you think, well, it should just explode. And guess what? It doesn't explode. It's just like very gradual results over time. And what we see is the people who choose to not give up see massive results, because we know the process is already proven that if you do this, you get that. It just takes time. And Jim, most people quit just short of the breakthrough, man. It's like we talk about it all the time. Water boils at 212 degrees, not 210. And so many times you can watch people hit that 210 and then they're like, oh, I'm still not seeing the results. And it's like, don't stop. You're so close. Don't quit.
Well, and I want to say 2 things. Number one, I think you're a prime example of this. I'll never forget when you said 20 plus years ago, I had the restaurant. You were at Lakewood leading worship, and then you were working bivocationally. It was flipped. Like you weren't making money. You actually worked for, I think, 1 year or 2 years for free in the mortgage business to learn it. And then people look at you today and they're like, wow, he's an overnight success. No, brother, that's been 20 years and you did not quit. You have been diligent. You're the most faithful and diligent person I know. I mean, you just have a resolve that inspires me. You don't quit. You don't stop. You keep doing the right thing every single day. But I think that you have found a way to encourage yourself. And I think part of that, even to the listeners, if your motive is wrong, you easily get discouraged. So if it is to be the success, if it is to make the millions, sometimes that's just not enough. And in most times, I think it's not enough. And for the ones where it is enough, then when they get to the top, they have sold everything. They don't have a family. They don't have a marriage because their God was gold or success, glory, And so I think it goes back to where you're supposed to be. God, did you call me into the mortgage business? Because here's what I know about you. You've always had that moment, even when it was tough. You're like, man, I know God told me to get in the mortgage business. And I think that foundation, for many of your listeners, they're believers. So it's like that foundation of, God, if you called me to be here, then I can't quit. It's not an option of if I'm going to quit. I got to keep moving. I've got to be faithful with what you called me to do. And then in the faithfulness, it's like you said, you just spin the flywheel. Like you just keep spinning the wheel. And then one day, boom, it happens.
Yeah.
But here's the other deal. And this is what I love about what you do. Even if what you thought would happen never happens, are you making a difference? Are you having a significance in the lives of the people that you're helping? And I just sold one of my rental properties. Your team helped the tenant that was in there to buy the property. And I love it because the whole time it wasn't even about selling the property, but it went back to, we are helping someone change their life by buying your property. And you found a way to bring a transaction to have purpose. And then it's like, wow, even if I don't hit the overnight success of dollars, I'm literally making a difference with every single interaction. And even to the ones that don't buy and the ones that don't use your services, were you able to give them a little hope, a little bit of life? Maybe you were the answer to their prayer. And so we even evaluate sometimes the goalpost of what we're seeking and pursuing. And then I found when you have the right goalpost, that's when God tends to bring the success anyway. And so it's just been a great journey, and you're such a great example to the people that listen to your podcast and learn from you. And yeah, it's fun, you know.
Well, yeah. Hey, and thank you. You know, I love you, man. The feeling is 100% mutual, man. It's just, you're one of the greatest pastors. And this message of that God's really been speaking to your heart about has been resonating, because I think so many times it's exactly what you say. You know, you see the big personality, you see what's celebrated, and oftentimes we miss that typically it's not that big event that got them there, but it was we talked about this a couple of years ago. It's the faithfulness in the field. It's the faithfulness when nobody sees. It's getting up even when you don't feel like it. It's taking your thoughts captive when they tell you that you can't do it, you're not good enough, and you'll never make it. And I think it's those little steps. It's the inches. You and I were talking about that this week. This is the lesson that I feel like God is speaking to my heart, is that we've been in this crazy season of just moving a massive project forward. And it's like, you know what? We won't quit. And it's a game of inches. Right. And man, I just think it in recognizing whether we ever step on that stage or not, it is extraordinary things are done by ordinary people who take everyday steps. I love it, man.
Well, I just think that has, if we can really understand that, then what happens is every day is a true moment for me, steward, that today, my steps of obedience, my little act that seems very insignificant. And one of the things that I've been trying to do, and I know you do it so well, even with our church, I've used words like unimpressive, like ordinary, unremarkable. Have you ever felt like that? Because what I tell the church, and I even said it yesterday, I think it was the third service, I really went in on it, is I feel that way. Like you feel that way. Yeah. I don't know anybody who has ever reached a place of success that doesn't have those internal feelings, because we all walk into rooms where people are smarter, they have greater titles, positions, influence, affluence. And so the lie of the enemy is, well, they've obtained it and those voices are not in their head. And I just think that's just a lie. Everybody has those voices. The difference is, like you said, you've overcome those voices. You've allowed yourself to learn that it's not about what I feel, it's what I know. And if I will keep moving forward every single day, I read something the other day, and I've read it before, but it just re-galvanized something in me. It says, if you do something for 18 minutes a day for a year, you'll be in the top 5%.
I saw that. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
In in that industry. Just
I know it. That's it.
Well, 18 minutes a day. Crazy. And it goes back to how easy it is to be an expert. Yeah. But it's not easy. So in one way, it's like 18 minutes a day. Like I've read that before, but for whatever reason, it just really hit me. Yeah. Wow, that is not a lot. But what it is it's the discipline of every day.
Well, hey, and you just said it, it's showing up when you don't feel it. And I think we're such a society that is driven by feeling. Hey, what do you, and man, I've even been catching myself with Ethan and Lucas, my kids, and Ellie, really trying to get away from, I want to know how you feel, but when we've got to attack the day, your feeling matters less. It's about what do we need to get done today that moves the needle forward in our impact in society. And I think that so many times, Jim, and talk about it, how do you push past the feeling, you know, and even it's the self-doubt, and Carl calls it little guy on your shoulder. But what are some of the things they can do to push through it? How does a listener do that?
Well, first, let's talk about the thing that you addressed. I love what you said, how you're having conversations with Ethan and Lucas, my nephews. The thing that the reason we see this is because we have a fatherless generation. Men were never meant to be raised by women alone. And so what will happen if we're not careful is we'll raise a generation, and feelings are good. They're valid. You and I've been in counseling for a decade. I get it. I wrote a whole book, Unstuck and Unstoppable. I address you know, men tend to shut down their emotions. In fact, if you don't have the book, go buy it. The last portion of the book talks specifically to men, how that we have lived to learn, we learn to live shut down emotionally. And because of that, because we said, I don't ever want to feel the pain of defeat or discouragement or disappointment, we can't feel the joy of success, the joy of God's presence.
Mm.
And so it's both ways. To the degree you can feel pain is the degree you can enjoy success and joy. And that's
Wow.
where,
That's
but you've got
powerful.
a generation that's being raised not by men, either they're absent parents or they're women. And the man is meant to walk into a child's life. And there's been moments I've told Phyllis, hey, wait, you want me to raise a man? Then I need to address Caden different. She's like, I think you're too hard. I think you're like how he, and I get it. But there's got to be something in the discipline of, hey, we show up. And it takes both, right? A mom and a dad.
Mm-hmm.
So I think part of that, if someone is missing it, and I'm sure, what was it, 82% of men have never heard, wasn't that the stat you told me?
Yeah,
Never
yeah. It's staggering. It's almost
down
80%. Like I think it was 78% of men never
10%.
heard
You
their
and I
dad.
heard dad. He always
Yeah.
told us he loved us, gave us a
Yeah.
hug. We even kissed him on the cheek. So I don't understand that. Dad had his deficiencies in areas, as we all do. But to imagine a generation that's never heard that, well, then it is a roller coaster of emotion. And so I
Yeah.
think part of it is getting a mentor.
Yeah.
I love what you guys do at the Marketing Animals and what's it called? The coaching that you guys do.
Freedom Club. Oh yeah.
Freedom
Yeah.
Club.
Yeah.
I have a coach. And
Mhm.
so I have actually two coaches. I have one that does my soul, and then one who holds me accountable through my performance. And they're two different people, but they help me because I got to address the emotion and the feeling but I also need someone to say, Jim, you got a task list that didn't get done. They'll text me on Thursdays, hey,
Yeah.
how is message prep?
Yeah.
And so I think part of it is finding the accountability of someone who will kick you in the butt when you don't feel it, and
Mm.
allowing them to really push you and not get your feelings hurt, and to
Yeah.
be frustrated with them and say, thank you for challenging me. So I mean, that's probably just such an oversimplistic.
Well, no,
And
I mean, I just think it's it, man. I think your words have been encouraging. I think to to our community here, we need to be encouraged, and you need to keep moving and do the right
yes,
thing because the
yes.
results will follow. Hey, listen, we only have a few minutes left. I want you to talk about the initiative you're doing right now. So take the next 3 to 5 minutes. Tell our listeners just what you're doing.
Yeah, so we started an initiative. It was May 29th, the day it was Memorial Day. We started an initiative called 70 Days of Prayer for Gen Z. Gen Zers, that's teenagers, young adults, they are hurting, they are struggling. I'm a father of 4 Gen Zers. And what I found was I heard parent after parent after parent after parent telling me things like, I don't know what to do with my teenager. And I had a crisis personally with one of my teenagers that really was a wake-up call that even though I'm a pastor, I'm not exempt from the attacks of the enemy. And I knew that, but I don't think I was I think I might have been asleep just a little bit and a little bit naive. And so I felt when I'm in a place that something happens, and I just pray first. It's the very first thing I know to do. Prayer should be your first response, not your last resort. At the beginning of this year, we had a motto saying we are fighting for families. I felt the Lord really put that in our heart as a church. And if we're going to fight for families, that means we're not going to sleep and slumber through the summer. And so I just looked at the calendar and said, God, give us 70 days where we can pray. And so it was Memorial Day to August 6th. We started this prayer initiative. You can go to prayforgenz.com.
Yeah.
Currently, what has happened is what started as an initiative is now turning into a movement. We've had over 1,402 people sign up as of the recording of this podcast in 10 different countries: Canada, Mexico, India, Brazil, Guatemala, Ecuador, Australia, England, Egypt, and the Western Sahara, and over 20 different states, over 40 different cities across the United States. And we pray every day from 12 noon to 12:30 p.m.
And that's Central Standard Time. So for the listeners, yeah. And so it's noon, 12 to 12:30 Central Standard Time. And you guys are literally, it's a Zoom online prayer for,
Yep.
Yeah.
Currently we have anywhere from 50 to 100 people on the call right now. And it has been absolutely amazing. Every day, that even in the middle of summer, even in the middle of vacation, people are stopping vacation, they're taking lunch breaks. And where it culminates is July 29th and 30th, we have 2 stadium events. We have an event at Constellation Field It's going to be at 6 p.m. July 29th, and then Smart Financial Center at 11 a.m. on the 30th.
Hey,
And
and those are for people that are local to Houston, Texas, but they can
yeah,
find all that at prayforgenz.com, right?
.com. Yeah, and we're
Prayforgenz.com. Because hey, and I sent you a text the other day. One of the loan officers in my branch had their child, their Gen Zer on the prayer Zoom with you guys, and she was like, "It is so powerful."
yes,
And man, I think for anybody who's listening who says, "Hey, I don't know what to do with my kids," or "Hey, how do I connect with this next generation?" The things that Jim's been talking about, go to prayforgenz.com.
yes.
Get connected with
Pray
what
with
Jim's doing, because it genuinely is a movement of people that are concerned and really knowing that prayer has an impact in society and in our lives. And so,
yeah.
dude, it's
Well,
it's
and
it's
one other thing
amazing to
too,
see.
if you're listening to this, which you probably will be, and it's after August 6th, it's not going to stop. The next place is going to be Houston, then we're going to Dallas, we're going to San Antonio. And so we see this moving into every major city in Texas and then every state in the United States. And so it's not too late. Join us, prayforgenz.com, get more information. We'd love to have
Yes.
you join us.
Yeah, and link arms, man. I love what you're doing. And man, just seeing the young people, um, their lives are being touched. They're being given purpose and hope
Oh,
and
it's been
freedom in their lives.
yes.
And I think it's one of those things where, man, it's so powerful to see a generation that has been raised by peers really begin to shift focus and realize, you said something, that this selfie generation would become a selfless
Yeah.
generation. And it's powerful. And I know our time is coming to an end, but Jim,
Yeah.
man, you and I could talk for hours. Bro, I love you being here. It's an honor. Not only are you my best friend and my brother, you're a remarkable pastor, and really helping to lead people back to God, into a hope and purpose and significance in their lives. So thank you for what you do, man.
Absolutely. I love you, brother. Thank you to everybody. It's been a pleasure.
Hey, and listen, guys, y'all stay connected with Jim. I know all of our community, just thank you for being on the journey. I felt like this was a message today. Ordinary people doing extraordinary things. You've got what it takes. Keep fighting the fight. If those of you who are interested, connect with Jim and what they're doing at prayforgenz.com. And just thank you for being on the journey. Remember this: anything worth doing is worth doing badly. Just get started. See ya.